You like it over there? It's a good space? Okay, good. We're good. We're good. Let them look happy. Let them be happy. Okay. Well, it's a little different configuration than yesterday evening. I heard you were very enthusiastic. Yes? Very enthusiastic. Too irresistibly enthusiastic. Even though practicality is another thing. So, largely, at least it's the wrong day of the week, but this is primarily a Bhakti Vriksha group, and the discussion of the Bhakti Vriksha group is on chapter 8, Attaining the Supreme. And there's a whole series of verses in this section that you're covering that are focusing on the importance of the mind and what the mind is absorbed in to determine attaining the Supreme. So elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam jajatante kalevaram. Whatever the mind is absorbed in at the time of death, that state one will attain without fail. Smaran bhavam. So attaining the Supreme means fixing the mind on the Supreme. So naturally, the 8th chapter has a lot to do with the absorption of the mind. And if you have one of those little doodads, cell phone, do the needful before you get embarrassed too. Consistently, there are other methods and processes, but the principal process that Prabhupada refers to again and again is naturally the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra as a way of fixing the mind upon the Supreme. So, the text for this evening is chapter 8, text number 7. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhya cha. Yudhya is the occupation of Arjuna. He's a Kshatriya. And Kshatriyas engage in yudhya. Dharma yudha, but yudha or yudhya. So the emphasis in this verse is not karma sannyas, but karma palatyag. That's from the earlier section, chapter 3, chapter 5. Not karma sannyas, but karma palatyag. So Arjuna's if we need some space, then the camera's going to have to disappear. Yeah. sit down and relax. Make yourself at home. Everything's okay. One of the dynamics that gently and silently and very softly weaves itself in and out of the Bhagavad Gita is a predetermined and stubborn disposition of Arjuna. Arjuna taking the position of somebody who's not Krishna's devotee, but wants to be religious. And so he takes the position of karma sannyas. And in the world today, when someone becomes profoundly, significantly, deeply spiritual, that's considered to be the program, karma sannyas. It's Shankaracharya's message. But it's not just, in India. It's not, a certain part of South India. It's in the world. And just, give you the Western context. One of the things that happens at our temples over extended period of time is there's certain high school and college teachers teaching world religion or something like that. They like to bring their groups of students to the temple and other places. They go to other places besides the temple. Kind of give them a picture of what it looks like, because they're reading in a textbook, here's what it looks like. So they come to the temple. And skipping a lot of things. When it comes to questions and answers, one of the common questions is, in order to be a member of this organization, do you have to renounce your worldly possessions? That's a term that's used for people that live in a monastery. It's a vow of poverty, what it's called in legal terms. I learned that from when I applied for Medicaid. So you're taking a vow of poverty. Well, what I say in the college students is, no, you don't have to renounce world possessions, but you have to renounce the misconceptions that you have world possessions to renounce. Because everything belongs to Krishna. So we just live in the world, recognize that everything belongs to Krishna. Now that can be for different ashrams. You don't have to be a monk. That's, the Western perspective. To be a sincere practitioner of such and such, be a good Catholic or something, then you become a monk. Then you live a celibate life and you renounce worldly possessions. Literally, they sign a document, they renounce worldly possessions. And the government recognizes that status. There are different ways of recognizing that status. Now, coming back to Bhagavad Gita, that's, if you're going to get really spiritual, then karma sannyas. So that's the position that Arjuna is taking. 3 times. He wants to leave the battlefield. He wants to renounce his duty, karma sannyas, and live a different lifestyle, live a monastic lifestyle, live in the forest. Krishna says, no, perform your prescribed duty. Why do you ask me to engage in this ghastly warfare? He has some adjectives that describe what Krishna wants in not very pleasing terms. when you say knowledge is better than fruitive work, which is true. Knowledge is better than fruitive work. But fruitive work, the devotional service isn't fruitive work. And it's not just karma sannyas, it's renouncing the fruits of one's work. Karma palatyag. Then it comes again in chapter 12. 3 times in explicit terms. He's asking the same question. So here in chapter 8, it's addressed. It's engaging in prescribed duty. Yudha. Yudhya. Mama nusmara. Yudhya cha. Think of me. Always think of me. And engaging in prescribed duty. So his prescribed duty is to be a Kshatriya. Our prescribed duty is whatever it is. We have different psychophysical natures. And according to our age and our position and so forth, we have different duties. We have our psychophysical nature. And we don't need to be afraid that by engaging in our duty we'll become entangled. This came up in a university just earlier this week, University of Maryland. Engaging in duties, it's the standard misconception. If I do those things, I'm going to get dirty. I'm going to get materially entangled and involved in karma. But Bhagavad Gita doesn't require that. It's not, well, if you don't have the capacity to be a sannyasi, then it's okay, you can get entangled in material affairs. And that's basically what Shankara says. If you want to make spiritual advancement, I'm just doing this, karma sannyas thing again. If you want to make spiritual advancement, you have to take sannyas. Negative. If you don't take sannyas, you're not going to make spiritual advancement. You've heard that one. I met somebody, it's anecdotal, but I was traveling one time from Delhi to Hyderabad, and it was one of those morning flights when they all have all the planes leave at the same time, and so that the airport is totally jammed, because business people want to get nation to do their business, and then come back in the evening flight. So the morning, the airport is just jammed with people. There were long lines to check in luggage and long lines to go through security. One fellow was in front of me, and he kept looking back, like I was a white elephant or something. And finally went through security. It took about 45 minutes plus. And when I went through security, he had reserved a space for me. He's like, I don't know, we wanted to talk. So he said, can I ask you a question? Is it true that I have to renounce my wife and child in order to make spiritual advancement? I said, where'd you learn that one? And, well, Shringari Mat. But I love my wife and I love my child, and I'm going to going somewhere for my my career, and I'm doing that for my wife and my child, but I want to make spiritual progress. So I said, this is a classic. This is, you just read here's a gift copy of Bhagavad Gita. It's for you. Read it. I said, I've also gone to temples, and I see there are householders and families with children, and I'm attracted to that, but I want to make spiritual advancement. He was sincere and kind of stuck on what some teaching that he had heard that's the same position that Arjuna was taking. And Krishna was saying no, and no, and no. The question in chapter 12 is, which do you consider comes after 11? After he's seen the universal form and he's understood Krishna's position from chapter 10. So in chapter 12, which do you consider to be better? Meditating on my impersonal or my personal feature? It's a very explicit question. Krishna gives a very explicit answer. Meditating on my personal form is better. And progress can be made by meditating on the impersonal feature, but it's very troublesome. But eventually they'll come to me. So someone was in a morning walk conversation asking Prabhupada, what does that mean? Because some people just say, well, take your pick. Maybe a little more troublesome, but eventually they come to me. What does it mean they eventually come to me? They eventually come to the position of devotional service. But why make so much trouble and have it take so long? He quoted, Bahunam jamanam ante gyanavan mam prapadyate. Many, many, many births of that impersonal, indirect cultivation of knowledge program, and eventually, voila, Vasudev Sarvamiti, Krishna is everything. I have to surrender to him. So you can surrender to him, or you can not surrender to him and eventually surrender to him. That's what that verse means, Prabhupada's explanation. Eventually they come to me. Eventually. Why take so much trouble? That's unintelligent. So the position that Bhagavad Gita is expressing is very clear. It's the my arpita mano buddhir. Arpita, it's worship. You worship Krishna through mana and buddhir, the mind and intelligence. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without a doubt. It's a good verse. The purport is very short. The emphasis in the purport is not karma sannyas, engaging in your practical activity. Some of you are familiar with Chaitanya Charitamrita, the section where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu meets with Ramananda Roy. When Mahaprabhu was traveling to South India, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya made one request: please meet Ramananda Roy. He's very elevated. You'll enjoy conversation with him. He's so elevated. I didn't understand him previously. Now I understand. By your mercy, he's a very elevated devotee. So they're discussing. And the beginning of the discussion is, what's the goal of life and the means to achieve it? That's where their conversation started. And different important verses were presented by Ramananda Roy. Each one, Mahaprabhu said, was external. The one that he accepted is similar in message to this one. Sthane statak shrutikatam tanavan manobhir. Sthane stata, you stay in your position. The goal of life is not give up your duty or give up your prescribed duty, your activities, leave the world and become a monk, become a sannyasi. This is Lord Brahma, 10th canto, chapter 14. Sthane stata, shrutikatam tanavan manobhir. Engage instead fully with your mind, hearing messages of transcendence, of the personality of Godhead, and without undue attachment to the affairs and the activities of this world. It's consistent. The Bhagavatam's message and the Bhagavad Gita's message is consistent. I'm dwelling on this because it's a short purport, and that's what, in the short purport, that's the emphasis that Prabhupada has given. The Lord does not say that one should give up his prescribed duties or engagements. One should continue them, and at the same time think of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. This will free one from material contamination and engage the mind and intelligence in Krishna. So to engage the mind and intelligence in Krishna, that's in part done through the sadhana bhakti process. It's done in part through the activities of your prescribed duties. You engage your mind and intelligence, not just how to get a job done, or how to pass your exam if you're in school, or not that kind of material intelligence. The spiritual intelligence is how to dedicate that activity in a deeper sense, in a devotional sense. Dedicate your existence to the service of Krishna. And a part of your service to Krishna is, and you fill in the blank, at different phases of life. Student, professional life, family life, etc. The very similar. It's not a mistake. It's not by mistake that there's similarities or principles of spiritual life are stated in different ways in different places. The principles stay the same. The ways of stating them are different, from different angles of perspective or perception. We get a more clear picture of what the principle is and how to apply it. So here's another example I like very much. At the end of all the Brahma Samhita prayers, so the beginning, there's three parts. Beginning is the process of realization of Brahma. The second part is realizations in the prayers. And then the last part is carrying out his duty. Because at the very end of those prayers, Shriya Kanta, there isn't a doubt expressed by Brahma, but Krishna knows Brahma. So Brahma's doubt is twofold, same doubt. Uh-oh, now I have all this high realization, and I have this duty to do. And my duty is to create a universe. You know, our duty is something a lot less complex than create a universe. You know, he has a greater capacity, so he has a greater complexity of service. But the principle is the same, and so here's the doubt. If I do this, I'll lose my Krishna consciousness. And if I don't do this, I'll be neglecting my duty. You know, damned if you do and damned if you don't. What should I do? He doesn't express it. Krishna understands that's his doubt. He's perplexed. I don't want to lose my Krishna consciousness. I don't want to neglect my duty. How do I go forward? And the answer is that you engage in your prescribed duty, joined together with hearing and chanting. And when you join those activities, Bhaktisiddhanta's purport is really beautiful. Man has threefold activities, and he gives the categories, and then the subcategories of those categories. There's the body and the mind, and then such as da-da-da-da. There's social, da-da-da-da-da. And so there's obligations that we have for our ancestors and family, and the social obligation that we have. And those are duties. And when you neglect those duties, there's bondage. That's sin. You can't be neglectful of duty. You must perform duty. But to do them looks like bondage of karma. So one should do them joined with the activities of sadhana, and then what Bhaktisiddhanta writes is they become as purifying as the activities, direct activities of bhakti themselves. That is just exactly as what's being described here in the purport. One's mind and intelligence will become purified by engaging in according to your nature, your prescribed activity according to nature, in service to Krishna. They'll become purified. Part of the difficulty of becoming Krishna conscious is there's different sitting places for lust, or lust meaning the tendency to be enjoyer. And so the mind and the senses need to be purified also. And that's the practical activity of devotional service. There's nothing compromising about purifying the mind and purifying the senses. It's necessary. It's necessary. Even for someone, so Arjuna's argument, he just takes it to the far extreme. Supposing I become a perfected soul, can I then do karma sannyas? And Krishna says, no. Then you have to show by example, because people will look to you for the example that you're setting. So even you become perfect, no karma sannyas, you should perform prescribed duty. That's our program. It's not like a compromise. Not now it's authorized. It's our program. It's Krishna's instruction. We engage the mind and senses in practical activity. That's what bhakti is. Another little section, I refer to it regularly because it's very potent. Of all the yoga systems, which one is the topmost yoga system? The topmost yoga system, the last verse of chapter 6, is devotional service. And it has these two parts, the same two parts. With the mind absorbed in me, and with great faith engaging all your activities in me. Shadhavan bhajate yomam. Madgatain antaratmana shadhavan bhajate yomam. It's those two things. Madgatain antaratmana, mind absorbed in me, that's what the mind does, and then the practical activity. Shadhavan bhajate yomam. So Prabhupada explains this word bhaj. It's the root word of bhakti, and bhaj, B-H-A-J, means engaging the senses in practical activity. So an impersonalist is withdraw the senses, and the devotee is for service to Krishna and extend the senses into the field of the object of the senses for service to Krishna. The picture is quite different. If there isn't service to Krishna, then the senses are withdrawn. That's the tortoise that withdraws his senses within the shell. But if there's service to Krishna, the senses are extended. And it's not going to result in contamination, it's going to result in purification. If it's bhajate, for the purpose of pleasing Krishna, the operative word, the swarup lakshana, the principal operative contemplation is Krishna should be pleased. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam. Bhakti Ruchate. Krishna should be pleased. Extend the senses, say it again, into the field of the object of the senses for the purpose of serving Krishna, pleasing Krishna. It's Krishna's energy, meant for Krishna's service. Let me do that for Krishna's service. I have to be careful that I don't start on the path of doing Krishna's service and get forgetful of Krishna and become involved in the other program, the sense gratification program. I have to be careful. That's Brahma's concern. If I'm going to create this universe, I may just forget everything. If I have to go to the office between 9 and 5, my Krishna consciousness shuts off. I mean, I've had persons explicitly say like that. I get it, Krishna consciousness up till 9 o'clock, and then after 5 o'clock, I get it. But then the 9 to 5, it just, there's no thought of Krishna at all. Sit down in my workstation and I'm absorbed in my work. And I don't know how I can be mindful of Krishna and be absorbed in my work, because then I'd be not attentive to my work. I have to be attentive to my work. In one sense, it makes sense. So the art of work is to know how to, in a deeper sense, to be attached to the principle of doing your work, or doing your family duty, or doing your academic work, and by some means or another, that you're doing this for Krishna. That's the art of work. And then there's purification, not contamination. So that's what this verse is saying. Tasmat, therefore, Arjuna, sarva kaleshu, at all times, ma manusmara yudyacha. Engage your mind in thinking of me and your prescribed duty. In your case, Arjuna is being a warrior. Yudhyacha. Mai arpita mano bodhir. Arpita, Prabhupada has translated as surrendering. Arpana is another meaning of that word is worship. Arpana or arpita, mano bodhir. With your activities dedicated to me, that's how you always think of Krishna. You dedicate the activity. So, back to the story when I was sitting in the Delhi airport. As I was going back and forth with this young man, said, "Have you ever visited Yeah, I visited Hare Krishna temples, but I'm confused because I see, he kind of had bought into the idea that you can't make any spiritual advancement if you have a family, because that's worldly, and you got your anchor in. You're not going to go anywhere if you got your anchor in. You got to pull the anchor. Take sannyas." So as I was speaking, there was a devotee couple with 2 children heading for Hyderabad. They, had tilak on, and the kids had their japa beads and japa bag, and they came and paid obeisances right in the airport. So I said, "I think you just need to talk to this family here. They'll help you understand you can make spiritual progress. But you have to have the right conception of Bhagavad Gita's message, and then good guidance how to apply that message of Bhagavad Gita." Arjuna wanted to do karma sannyas, but he was a householder, and he had children, and he had wives. He had more than one wife. Krishna didn't say, "Yes, Arjuna, you have to give up your children, give up your wife, give up your occupation, and then you can be a spiritual person." I said to this young man, did Krishna say that to Arjuna? He could have. He's giving dharma. Dharma sangsthapanartaya. Stay in your prescribed, stay in your position. Sthane stata. Mind and intelligence absorbed in me, activities dedicated to me. Think of me in this form, surely you will come to me. You will attain me without doubt. Mame vaishashi asamshayaha. This is only verse 7. There's a whole lot of more verses in this chapter, attaining the Supreme. It doesn't deviate from the principle, it just explains the singular importance of where the mind goes, that's where you go. If you want to go to Krishna, absorb the mind in Krishna. And to absorb the mind in Krishna, it's not advisable, karma sannyas. And the fixing the mind, but one more time, the fixing the mind upon Krishna, because I was asked to say something about chanting. It's in this purport, it's in the next purport, it's in the next purport. It's the Hare Krishna movement, so it's about chanting Hare Krishna is the most powerful prescribed method. It continues with other things, so it starts with hearing and chanting Mahamantra to bring one to that position of always remembering Krishna. Even in the midst of engaging the senses and the objects of the senses in apparently worldly matters. You do them for Krishna. How's it going over there? You still happy or you're bored? You happy? Okay. Is this Sudevi again? Hare Krishna, Sudevi. Hare Krishna. It's okay, you can stay. It's okay. You can stay. You were being very peaceful. Okay. Any discussion? Yes.
Hare Krishna. If spiritual life is taken care, so the material life is automatically takes care.
Your voice is really soft, and he's rattling his jacket, and the jacket's louder than your voice. Do it again.
If spiritual life is taken care,
if spiritual life is taken seriously, taking care,
the material life is automatically.
From spiritual well-being, material well-being follows.
Right, Maharaj.
Yeah.
So here, doing our duty. And Krishna consciousness. So
I'm listening.
I have an instance like a child is very much interested in the spiritual life, but not interested in education and all. And
where is that child? You know one like that?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah?
But the parents' expectations are like to do his studies well. But I'm just trying to understand, if the person is so much spiritual, how this education is neglected.
I'm not sure what you're asking. Are you asking how to help the child that has spiritual interest to also have academic interest?
Yes.
That's your question? You do it for Krishna, that's how. I've had discussions with young people, I don't know, maybe 100, on this topic, where, I'm losing interest in my academic work. So the message, keeping it simple, the theme goes like this. Before you were interested with a different purpose. And, it looked like such and such, right? Well, not exactly, more like, okay, so that was the inspiration to do well in academic work. Competition, succeed, conquer, passion, show yourself and prove yourself and get recognition and achieve and all those lovely motive passion activities or motivations. Now you've developed an interest in Krishna. So that has faded somewhat. And now you've lost interest in your academic work. So now what you have to do is consider, does this have a place? The answer I'm telling you ahead of time is yes. Does this have a place in my service to Krishna? And it does. Now, you're not mature in your devotion yet, you may not understand how it has its place in service to Krishna, but it has its place in service to Krishna. So it depends upon the young person, where it goes from there. But, hey, I don't remember, all the stuff I learned in science class and math class and history class and this one and the other one, the details of those things I don't recall. But there's a certain acumen and faculty of discipline and discerning one thing from another thing and to develop refining intelligence that I use in my everyday life in devotion to Krishna. And then there may be many other applications that later on in your life will be useful in your service to Krishna. Now, you're not there yet, so you don't know the application points. But there's a purpose. It's a different purpose. It's a service to Krishna purpose. It's not a service to, how many marks you're going to get after your name and how many dollars you're going to earn because you got so many marks after your name, and standing big in front of other people that are standing less big, and win and compete, and just check out of that program and check into Do It for Krishna program. And you're going to have to learn that, because that's not just only academic, it's life. And here's some verses you can look at, and here's some support resources you can turn to, and here's some persons who have been through what you're going through right now, and they can mentor and guide you and help you understand. And don't be an impersonalist. Don't be a karma sannyasi person. Depends on the individual, what language is used. But it's a reset, and Do It for Krishna reset. But it's not an uncommon, I would say it reverse. It's common that pause comes where I'm losing interest, and that's a good sign. Okay, so instead of the material interest type, what's the for Krishna type of interest? It's learning a whole new way of life. It's good. It's wholesome. Congratulations. Let me help you in that transition phase. Do it for Krishna. It's not identical, but it's very similar to Brahma's, I got to create a universe. And then here's the student saying, I got to do all this academic work. I don't want to get distracted from my spirituality. Anything else? You usually have a question or two. Anything bubbling around in there?
I'm just trying to think about the answer that you gave to Mataji. If the parents are concerned about the child's not showing interest in academics, and whatever the techniques they try to use to induce the child to understand this concept that do it for Krishna, seems to work.
If that's not working, then what? That's your question?
Yeah, what is the best way to approach?
Keep trying. Ask questions. Sometimes it's just, somebody gets stuck and they need a little, try the same thing approach the thing from a different direction. But the principle doesn't change if you take a different approach. It's a do it for Krishna principle. Take another subject matter besides academics. Take any other subject matter, and how do you apply the principle of do it for Krishna? Then, okay, that's what it looks like, that's what it feels like, that's the principle. Now let's go back to the academics one. What does it look like? What does it feel like? How do you do it? What's it? Because it's a principle of life, learning how to do things for Krishna. Take something that they like to do, and what does it feel like to do it? You do it because you like to do it, and where does that take you? If you do it the same thing, something you like to do, but it's not just because you like to do it. You do it for Krishna. What does that look like? What does it feel like? How is it different than before, when you're just doing something because you like to do something? Anyway, take the principle and apply it in different ways, and then go back and examine, take together, look at what does it look like. How's that? And a lot of that depends on a relationship between parent and child, that there's a wholesome regard and respect, mutual regard and respect. Like I said, also someone that's been through this, that's more their age, that can say it in a way that young people talk to each other and they can understand each other. It's not like, you're an authority person and I'm... Anyway, from another voice, another position than just the parents. A mentor or a guide or a good friend or something. There are some situations where that's exactly what's going on. Somebody, a young person that gets it, is being the coach for someone that doesn't get it. And then because they're a young person and they get it, then the coached individual can receive it. Oh, that's what it looked like. And here's, they're a little bit older than me, but, kind of like a peer. And so I like that example, I like the person, and they're off they go. Anything else?
Prabhu, in the Gita, it is said that all the four varnas come from Krishna.
Yeah.
The Brahmana,
Yes,
Brahmana
yes,
and
yes.
the Kshatriya. So I interpreted that that it is based on merit. But some people say it's solely based on the birth. So I get confused when I see like a Brahmin who is indulging in drinking and those kind of things.
Yeah, that's not a Brahmin.
Which, yeah, exactly. So what's your take? Yeah.
Well, you've answered your own question.
Yeah.
It's not by birth.
I just want to say that I interpret that properly.
Yeah, it's by character and qualification. You understood correctly. That doesn't mean that someone that's... Anyway, there's lots of what it doesn't mean. What it does mean is it's by guna and karma, not by janma. Okay.
Maharaj, working in the IT field, there's always the...
and then let me say something. Prabhupada gives this example, excuse me. Prabhupada gives this example. If I'm born, this is now I'm born the son of an Ayurvedic physician. And it's natural when I'm the son that my father will teach me how to find the right herbs and how to mix the herbs and prepare the herbs and make the medicines and how to diagnose things. I have like a little head start.
Yeah, exactly.
Because my father is an Ayurvedic physician. It doesn't qualify me to be an Ayurvedic physician because my father's I have to get some training and education in Ayurveda.
You get the tutelage and everything.
Yeah. So there's advantage if I'm born
in
a family, a Brahmana family, that there's like a head start or some opportunity, some facility provided just within that, by that position of birth. But it doesn't guarantee that I'm going to be of that quality, capable of Brahminical activity, particularly in this age of Kali, and particularly where sanskaras aren't observed, starting with Garbhadan sanskara. And so we're even when it is by birth, it's by guna and karma. So,
working in the IT field, there is always a demand that the things keep changing and we have to keep learning new things to related to the work.
I've heard that.
And so I can learn something, so I can and I'm using it towards my work. Yes, that's fine. But over a period of time, that tendency to learn takes over, and then just want to learn more and more and more, and it almost becomes like a sense enjoyment. So, given that kind of a tendency, how can I overcome?
Just do it for Krishna. That's the self-restraint. Mind and senses need a valve. That, there's the gas pedal and there's the brake pedal and a steering wheel. And if you lose track of where those three things are, it can go out of control. Now, don't do that and it's a problem. Do that and it's a problem. So you have to be conscious. You have to be Krishna conscious. Regularly revisit, why am I doing this? It's not a bad question, it's a good question. So go to the, like, what's the goal of life? Or, you know, who am I? Go visit it again. It's not bad. It's not like, gee, I'm dumb, I should, that was kindergarten. You know, it just refine, refresh, so that as you go forward with the complexities like you're describing, there's other ones, then I'm not getting lost in the complexities. I'm very mindful of my purpose. I got a very nice, yeah, just a sec. Let me finish. I got a very nice letter from a teenager. In the subject column said purpose. So I wrote back, you know, the purpose-driven life, because there's this very popular book, Vaisheshika Prabhu mentions it, and others, you know, that are forward-thinking devotees. I forget the fellow's name, The Purpose-Driven Church. It's very Brajabihari mentions also. I've not read the book. But, you know, there are principles involved in, you know, say it differently, the why. If you're very clear, but in this IT field, or any other application, if you're very clear about the why, and you stay with the why, the what and the how become manageable. If you lose the why, then it becomes, you know, you get crushed by the material energy, or get washed away, or, you know, lost. And then, oh, I forgot Krishna. And then it's like a lot of work to get back. So cultivate the purpose, and refine it, and refine it, and refine it. Don't be lazy. Spiritual life isn't for lazy people. It's for people who are alert and thoughtful, mindful of Krishna. That's the bhakti is the protection against getting washed away. Yes.
You know that when something comes in your mind, I should eat this and I should eat that, or I should make a mess and stuff. You know that you should listen to intelligence, but how do you know which voice is intelligence?
How do we know the difference between mind and intelligence, is your question? That's your question? That's a nice question.
Thank you.
What do you use as differentiating between mind and intelligence? You're not sure. Well, okay. Some definitions, if it's okay. They're functions of the mind. They're described generally in two different ways: accepting, rejecting. Accepting, rejecting. Sankalpa, vikalpa. Accepting, rejecting. And the basis of accepting or rejecting on the platform of the mind, if you're in material consciousness, is, does it feel good? Does it make me happy? Am I enjoying yet? You've heard that one. Are we having fun yet? That's the mind. Then you accept or you reject based upon the senses, the enjoyment of the senses, commonly in material conception. Accepting, rejecting. And then the intelligence is interacting with the mind. The intelligence, what does the intelligence do? It discriminates between this and that, one thing and another thing. when someday maybe, in school or somewhere along the way, you'll take an IQ test. What an IQ test is, it's analyzing your capacity to see the difference between one thing and another thing. Discernment. It's generally like multiple choice things. Here's like 4 things, and which ones is different than the other 3. So selecting what's discerning one thing from another thing, and they do it purposefully. Anyway, without all the details of how they do it, that's what they're doing. So the intelligence is discriminating between one thing, and discriminating in a good sense, not like racial discrimination. That's in a bad sense. Discriminating one thing from another thing. Like, a child is, everything goes to the mouth. You've seen that? And then eventually they learn, shoes go on your feet, not in your mouth. And that's my mom, and I respect my mom in a certain way, and anyway, not like, pull her face, and because kids don't discriminate. Just there's an object and they grab the object, and so making distinctions between one thing and another thing. It's development of intelligence. And then the mind is, I like it, I don't like it. So they're connected. The intelligence is discriminating one thing for another thing, and the mind is, I like it, I don't like it. Accepting, rejecting. Or another way of describing what the mind does is in phases. Thinking about something. You contemplate something. Then you have some feelings about that something that you're contemplating. And then there's a desire to have or to get rid of that something. Let's say, if I just started talking about, I'm thirsty. I'm not thirsty. But supposing I just started thinking about, gee, I'm thirsty, and here's some water, and here's something that's warm. And before I wasn't even thinking about it. I'm just absorbed in. And if I start thinking about it, then maybe a desire, maybe I need some water. And then the desire, here we go. So before there's activity, in the gross senses, there's what the mind does in sequence: thinking, feeling, willing. That's a mind function. The intelligence is discriminating. This one's cold, this one's hot. Discriminating one thing from another thing. So then the mind says, well, which one do I like? I like the hot one. But I need the intelligence to tell me which one is the cold one, which one is the hot one. The mind says, I like one or the other one. Or I don't like either of them, I want a third thing. That's the mind. They work together. Now, when you become a devotee, because you're becoming a devotee, right? You're trying. We're all trying to become devotees. So now, the contemplation is, for a devotee, the mind contemplates, what is Krishna like? Whoa! That's a nice contemplation. Because that's love. You're thinking about the beloved, the object of love, and what's pleasing to the object of love, and that's where the mind goes. It accepts that one. That's the mind. And then if something isn't pleasing to Krishna, the mind doesn't go there. It rejects it. Sankalpa, vikalpa, accepting, rejecting. That's when you're a devotee, or becoming a devotee. Then the intelligence is just discerning or discriminating one thing from another thing. Like, how you dress at school. Or what you eat at school. And the other kids may eat whatever they eat at school. But you're really clear, no thank you. Some of those things. And I'm fine with what I have. That's the mind is saying I'm accepting. But the intelligence is discriminating one thing from another thing. And so we use our faculty of mind, accepting, rejecting, and intelligence discriminating one thing from another thing, based upon what's, Krishna's at the center for us. And fortunately we have devotees of Krishna to help us understand what Krishna likes. And how do you do it? How do you grow up in the modern world as a little girl, and you got all kinds of other people that don't know anything about life of devotion to Krishna, and I want to be devoted to Krishna. How do I do that? You have people that can help show by example and teach and train, and you have representatives of Krishna to work with, resources that are there from Krishna, and see them that way. So I make this is a mind function. I accept as my closest friends those that respect the values of devotion to Krishna. I'm friendly to other kids. I'm not mean or cold or dismissive. I'm polite, but the ones that are the close friends, they're the ones that accept the values that I have. Because my intelligence says, I want to do that which is pleasing to Krishna. That's a decision that I'm developing in my life. How's that? Okay. Nice question.
Thank you.
Anything over there in the youth program? Anything? Nothing? You're happy? You ready for prasadam? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.